This podcast is brought to you by Benny and the Jets. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it can be pretty overwhelming in 2025 to try and find kids' clothes that are good quality, made ethically, and look great, which is why I personally love shopping at Benny and the Jets. Their whole ethos is around stocking quality, cool kids' clothes that are made ethically and consciously. I love being able to browse their website and just have the peace of mind that whatever I buy will be a piece that is made to last, as well as a piece that is created in good, safe working conditions. We love Benny and the Jets here at Why Do You Parent Like That, and they have very kindly offered to give listeners of Why Do You Parent Like That a 10% discount code. So if you use the code WDYPLT10 at checkout, you will get 10% off any non-sale items. That is WDYPLT10 at checkout. Thank you, Benny and the Jets. We love you. Welcome to Why Do You Parent Like That, a new podcast that has one set of questions with 1 million ways to parent. Each week we pose the same 5 questions about parenting to a new guest to explore and hear all the different ways and approaches that there are to parenting. Please do hit follow on this podcast because it really helps other people find us, and please share it with the parents in your life. We are so grateful to have you here listening today. A fun fact about this episode is that it was never meant to see the light of day, but the conversation ended up being so good that I thought, what the heck, let's release it. Today's guest is Jessie Peters, a mum of one, working mum, and one half of the wedding photography business Jessie and Jessie Weddings. We had originally gotten together to chat so that I could make sure I knew what I was doing on the technology side of having a podcast, but we ended up having the most rewarding and insightful conversation about parenting in the way that's right for you, about not sweating the small stuff, about letting your child take risks and make mistakes, and about how to keep your cup full even while parenting a small child. I loved this conversation and I got so much out of it, and I'm sure you will too, so please share it around. It would just mean so much. Without further ado, here's our very first guest of Why Do You Parent Like That, Jessie Peters. Enjoy.
Why do you parent like that?
Full disclosure, this is our very first recording, and this is my lovely friend Jessie, and she has very kindly agreed to be my test run subject for me today, but the bonus for us is that she actually has a very, very fantastic story. So if this ever makes it onto the internet, congratulations, you guys are about to hear a great story from a great person, and if it doesn't, then at least Jessie and I are going to have a great chat. So
Exactly.
yeah, so Jessie and I have known each other for a little while now, but it's really cool to get the opportunity to actually sit down and have a chat about this aspect of your life.
Yeah.
So do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, and then we will jump straight into the questions?
Sure. So I'm Jessie Peters. I'm 35, if that's relevant. And
It's all relevant.
yeah, who knows? I have a 4-year-old son called Louis, and my husband and I run a wedding photography business called Jessie and Jessie Weddings. And
Did one of you change your name to get that?
To get it
Someone
right.
changed their name, right? To make sure that you guys could have the same
Yeah,
name?
I was just I clearly need to find somebody with the exact same name as me to make things really easy.
That was the business plan.
Absolutely. And my other job is I am Chief Operating Officer at a tech company called Cub Digital. So that's my day job.
Nice.
And my night job's parenting.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah.
That job doesn't stop. That's an
Doesn't.
always job all the time.
Exactly.
Perfect. Cool. So what we'll do is we'll jump straight into the questions. So since this is a new podcast, I'll do a bit of an explainer. Basically, the idea behind this podcast is that I'm going to ask every guest the same 5 questions because I really want to highlight how different parenting looks for everyone, and talk about how context inform our parenting, because I feel like social media and traditional media, we see a very homogenous view of what parenting should look like. And I just think that's not accurate and can make people feel pretty lonely and isolated. So I just want to celebrate all the stories and all the parenting and all the journey, and just, highlight what different people's parenting experiences, because I just feel like we've got lots to learn. So on that note, tell me about your journey to becoming a parent.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me as well. And hopefully this is interesting for somebody listening.
It will be.
So, journey to becoming a parent. I was very fortunate in that it came very easily, really. I was very lucky. And I was thinking about that question because although on the surface it came really easily, I think a lot of that was also down to probably a lot of anxiety leading up to getting pregnant. And so being
Mhm.
super stringent on things like basal body temperature and period tracking and all of that kind of stuff. So I did write myself a note, which was Journey to Parenting Type A, but also chill.
Love that. Love that descriptor. And I'm sure like a lot of people relate to that feeling as well, because I know I was the same, usually quite a type B person. But when I knew he wanted to get pregnant, I was like, okay, like how do we set up this so that
Yes,
I have every
exactly.
chance of falling
Exactly.
pregnant? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So actually getting pregnant, we were really lucky, and
Nice.
I recorded it all in my little app. And so when I actually got my due date, I knew that my due date was more accurate than the doctor's due date.
Yeah.
And he
You were like,
wasn't.
well, we conceived on this date. So
Exactly. No, this is my due date. And they were like,
yeah.
well, it's not. And I was like, well, just wait and see.
You were like, we'll find out. See you in 40 weeks' time.
So, yeah, we were super fortunate, and we were just both working in our business at the time. So I was lucky enough to have, kind of as much time off as I needed because we were working from home. And I obviously had a bit of nausea and all of that kind of stuff, but really like so lucky. It was pretty textbook. And I was, it was much easier than I thought, that whole part. And being pregnant wasn't too bad, although I haven't been in a rush to do it again.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And what was your like labor birth experience like?
Again, I kind of feel bad saying it because I'm so aware that it's not the case for everybody, but I was kind of like 7 hours from first contraction to baby, and it was all really straightforward.
That's great.
Yes. The only part that wasn't straightforward is that my epidural just didn't work. So I really hope that doesn't freak anybody out, but unfortunately that is possible. And so they just kept trying, and they kept doing it, and they just kept numbing my leg. And I was like, yeah, guys, leg can't feel a thing. Everything
Like,
else.
I can't walk, but I
Really?
can feel every contraction.
Exactly. So that was quite wild. And then by the time that kind of happened, it was just like, okay, well, it's too late. So I don't even get the glory of saying I had a natural birth because it just didn't work.
I mean, I feel like we can call it a natural birth if everything except for your leg was feeling it.
But yeah, so and then since then I've been like, maybe I did feel it. And then I speak to other people and they're like, oh no, like I had a nap. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we were definitely not.
We were
feeling
not there.
anything.
We were not there.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty straightforward. And then I went straight to birth care, which I think is the strangest thing in the entire world, because you just like have a baby and then 3 hours later they're just like, see ya. And so I
Bye.
put this tiny little baby in the car. It was July and it was freezing. And I was like, I just feel like somebody should check my ID or something.
I know. You're like, you're just letting me leave with this small
Exactly.
human. Like,
Exactly.
you do know I've never parented before.
Exactly. And we just absolutely could not put him in the car seat, and it was like so embarrassing. And then he was too big for his outfit that I'd chosen, and oh my gosh. But
Yes, because your husband is a tall man.
he is a very tall man. So never buy baby clothes with feet. That's my advice.
Great advice, especially if you've got a tall
Large
parent in the equation.
Exactly. So
Oh,
no,
dear.
it was pretty straightforward, but it was also in between the 2 COVID lockdowns. So that was kind of stressful in its own way, obviously, because leading up to that, it was kind of like, am I going to be able to go into hospital? I was like starting to look into doulas, like what, is my husband going to be able to come to birth care? Like the whole thing, that was definitely
It
quite
was
stressful.
really stressful. Yeah.
That was.
And it seemed like the rules were changing every day as well.
Absolutely. And I think at that time we all didn't know, like, if I contracted COVID, how terrible that would or wouldn't be for me or the baby or whatever. So that was quite scary.
Yeah.
But, we made it through.
Well done.
So
You got there.
yeah, we got there in the end. And yeah, we were running our own business at the time. So we also, which is weddings, and there's not a lot of weddings that happened in the COVID lockdowns. So that whole thing was quite stressful too. So there was like
Add to the stress. Yeah.
Exactly. But then I think, the moment he was actually born, I was just hit with this like crazy, I guess like humility. Like I just had this crazy feeling like I'm so sorry to every mum that I've ever been in contact with or known
Yes.
because I just had no idea. And it was like the sudden revelation that I was now in this crazy club that I
Yeah.
didn't know that I wasn't a part of until I became a part of it. And
Yeah.
I just was like, I'm sorry I didn't help you. I'm sorry.
I know. You're like, I'm the worst village member ever.
And I was like, why am I buying these stupid little things when I could have
Yeah.
been holding your baby? And
I
like,
could have been making you food and
exactly,
doing
exactly.
your washing. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that was just like one of the weirdest revelations I've ever had and felt, so.
And for me, like I felt like my relationship with my mum immediately shifted. I was
Yes.
like, you did this for me. Like
Oh, yeah.
that you suddenly are like, that sacrifice that you made for me. Like, and I've never appreciated it until this moment. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, but contrary to that, I am one of those people who didn't instantly fall in love. And
me
I
either.
think, and I think I'm like, why did I say that? Because it's just like not true. I mean, maybe it's true for some people, but it just wasn't true for me. I mean, I was like, awesome. Like, I'm going to
You're
get
very important.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get to know you, like, I'm obviously gonna protect you, but
Yeah.
it's like I'm like, "Hey, dude, like, we're gonna have to get to know each other a little bit."
Yeah. That was, and both
Yeah.
times for me, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you're a stranger. I don't know
Yes.
you.
Yes,
I know
exactly.
you and now love you, but I don't
Yes.
know you right now.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. So I feel like that's a lie, so we should debunk all these lies.
Well, I'll let you know. Keep listening
Yeah,
because I'm sure there will
exactly.
be some people who I have who are like, no, it was immediate. Like,
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. But I don't think I'm a particularly maternal person, so we'll see.
interesting.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see what happens.
that is, yeah, I completely agree. And it's something that's actually a piece of advice I tell friends who are pregnant all the time. Like, don't feel bad if you don't
Yes.
have them put on your chest and just go, like, I've never loved anything more because I really didn't have that experience
Oh,
either time.
absolutely, and I'm like, give them, like, a day or 2 to get a little bit pink and a little bit fat. They are way cuter. They're
Or
way
like
cuter.
how swollen they are when they
Yeah,
can't, like, because obviously they've just squeezed through a birth canal, like, that's
exactly.
not exactly, like, conducive to looking real cute, but
No,
I just, like, that first day, they don't even look like what they're gonna look like
no,
because 'cause they're just
exactly.
swollen,
Yeah,
like.
exactly.
But were you a victim of the, like, "My baby's the cutest baby in the world," or were you like, "Ooh," what was your
Definitely not at first. Like, Jessie
yeah,
and I both looked at each other and we were like, "Well,
"Let's
I
hope he's got a good personality."
I think that comes later for me.
Yeah,
It came later for me.
yeah.
And now I'm like, sorry to everybody that mine is honestly the most beautiful child in the world. But
To be fair, he is a very beautiful child, and I'm not his mum, and I can say that, but yeah, I
yeah,
definitely
I think
agree.
all of that comes later. So yeah, I mean, at least it did for me. And
Yeah.
I did, I think you do look back. It's like those memes where you look back and it's like the newborn baby and it's like,
Like a
it
little
looks like
dinosaur
alien.
alien.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
totally. Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny. And so then what was the, like, initial stages like for you, like feeding and sleeping and all of that? How did that all go?
I think overall, Louis kind of like quite a stock standard baby.
Love that.
So, yeah, I think maybe I'd done quite a lot of reading and stuff beforehand. So I think
Mm.
I was like probably realistic as to what stock standard looked like. Breastfeeding he fed straight away, which was amazing. Breastfeeding
Mm.
was really painful for me for the first couple of days. And I had to have like nipple covers,
Yeah.
which in birth care seemed like the biggest deal in the entire world. And now I'm like, really, guys, it's not that big a deal.
That
Just
was
like,
actually fine.
it was actually fine. I think we used them for like 1 week and it really
Yeah.
like, but at the time you're like, he's only going to be used to the taste of rubber. Like, it's going to be
He's never
terrible.
gonna eat he'll never eat a
Like,
solid food
he'll
in his life.
probably never go to university now. But
Yeah.
yeah, totally not a big deal. So I would 100% use them if you need them. I had to sign a piece of paper to get them.
Did
Yeah.
you?
Like, I
Oh my
consent to
gosh.
using these. And so I was like, "Oh my god, like, what am I doing? Is this terrible?" It was, like, a little bit intense.
Yeah.
Um,
Max is a formula fed baby, and I remember in my, like, haze of making that decision and amongst just, like, feeding not working for us and my mental health not being great, I
yeah.
said to Andrew as we were making this decision, I was like, "I'm just so selfish because what if we get in a plane crash and I can't feed her from my boobs because 'cause I've changed her to formula?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?"
What if AI takes over the world and then there's just absolutely nothing left.
feeding from my body because we're in a plane crash. He was like, if you're in a plane crash, you're not making it anyway, babe. Don't worry about it.
I love hormones. They're ridiculous.
Oh, I know. And then you look back and you're like, oh, it really wasn't that big a deal at
Yeah.
all. It
Yeah,
was
exactly.
fine.
Yeah, it was all fine. Yeah. So the breastfeeding was fine. I really wanted to breastfeed and I was hoping that I'd be able to, and I was lucky enough to be able to.
Nice.
He has been hungry since the moment he was born. So for the first, like, honestly, I feel like it was a year, but I might be exaggerating in hindsight. But it felt like the first year, it was like every 45 minutes. And so
Oof.
I remember when he was like 3 or 4 months old, because I was like super overachieving, trying to get back to F45 and running to F45, which is 5 minutes down the road, and then trying to get back for the breastfeed. And like
Yeah.
in hindsight, I was like, babes, you could have chilled for a little bit longer.
You probably didn't need to sprint back to F4.
It was ridiculous.
Oh.
But yeah, I didn't, because I injured myself. Classic.
Yeah.
And so I stopped doing that. But yes, breastfeeding was pretty good, and we ended up breastfeeding for 2 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we were very lucky. Sleep was weird. I did what most new mums do, and I got all like sleep cycles and naps and timing and all of that kind of stuff, which probably if I ever had another child would just like not happen.
Go out the window.
Yes, exactly. But I think it kind of helped my type A personality make sense of the mayhem. And we ended up co-sleeping, which worked so well for me. And, I know that there's obviously lots of risks involved and you need to be aware of all of those things. But for our family,
And if you're doing it safely.
Exactly. We chose to do it. I got a little co-sleeper cot, which went on the side of the bed, which didn't really get used, but made me feel like I was doing something. And then, obviously, I was careful with pajamas and blankets and all of those kinds of things. And it made my life so much easier. And it meant we both got lots of sleep. And I just so treasure that time that we had. So, yeah.
So special, eh?
Yeah.
I just wish there was more, like, I understand why in New Zealand that it's recommended that babies have safe sleep spaces. Like, I totally understand that about the risk of SUDI and all of that jazz. But I also am like, the reality of it for parents' mental health is that, like, co-sleeping happens. And so we can either be like, no, 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 no. And then parents are doing it without education on how to do it.
Absolutely.
Or we can be like, oh my gosh, co-sleeping can be a beautiful thing. Here is the Safe Sleep 7. Here are these resources. Here's, and we could really set parents up for it. And I just think it's such a missed opportunity.
It's a shame to demonize something that internationally and historically has been, amazing for so many
100%.
parents across the world. And I think truly, like, it was like, well, what's worse, really? Like in all of these scenarios, because it's like you can also have babies who aren't sleeping or who are screaming, and it's just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it worked for us.
And like, what are you gonna not have them sleep and get up every second, and then you're gonna be sleep deprived and driving, and like there's like all these sort of like on-fill what if scenarios that you could.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I reckon like who needs baby clothes? What you actually need is Super King bed.
Yes.
And a Dyson vacuum cleaner. So like if you
Yes.
just buy those two things before you have
Everyone pull your money together for your friends.
Exactly. Just buy them a Super King bed and a Dyson vacuum cleaner. You'll be fine. Yeah. Oh no, it was good.
Yeah. My oldest Freddie was not a co-sleeper, never needed it. Dream sleeper, slept in his cot, absolutely fine. My youngest Max is a big old co-sleeper girly, which is absolutely fine and I love it. But we only have a queen bed and we didn't upsize because we never needed to with Freddie.
Exactly.
So Andrew's on the couch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
he's out of here.
You need a spare room or a couch or something.
100%. I'm like, sorry, mate. Bye. Figure it out.
Everybody's happier. Everybody.
Yeah. He's like, it's fine. I'm not waking up. It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so our next question is, what does gold standard parenting look like or mean to you?
So I think that's a hard question. For me, if I was going to like sum it up, I would just be like secure attachment. That's kind of what I'm aiming for. And if I could get that, then I feel like everything else will kind of fall into place. And I kind of know that parents have a unique way of messing us up no matter what they do. But that's what I'm trying for. And I think I kind of see parenting as like giving your kids a backpack for life full of tools. And those tools are like teaching them love and resilience and kindness and curiosity and problem solving, but then also practically like money skills and emotional regulation and how to host a dinner party and, you know,
I
all of
love
those
that.
things all mixed up. And kind of it's how giving them all of that equipment, but then also teaching them how to use it and when to use it. And parenting is also just like the most humbling reflection in the mirror of everything in your own life that is just 100% not sorted out.
Of your own stuff.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And so my intention, definitely not my action every time, but my intention is to parent consciously and not reactionary in a way that is just like reacting to the moment or reacting to actually how I was raised or all of the things that it brings up for me. And I love Dr. Becky and that Good Inside book. And so it's kind of like seeing the child that's in front of you and choosing to believe the best in them and believe that they, you know, that they are amazing, that they are a good person and that they will, you know, go far. Yeah. And then I just think gold standard parenting is really just like working on yourself because my gosh. So yeah, if I was going to do one thing or one gift to Louis, it's probably work on myself, to be honest.
And what does that look like for you? Because obviously that's like a lovely thing to say, but in reality, while you're parenting and working and all of that, like it can be hard to find the time or space, or like dredging up stuff can be really great. And then you're like, okay, now I pack it back in and go parent. Like, what does that look like for you?
For me, it probably practically looks like reading a lot of books, having a lot of conversation with other parents that I really admire. It probably means, working through books that bring things up for me and thinking about how I was parented and thinking about the things, the parts of that that I love and I want to take with me consciously and the parts that I consciously want to leave behind. And I do think that, you know, or I've heard somebody said that you parent in the moment by your default, which is basically how you were parented, unless you replace it with something else conscious. And so for me, it's kind of trying to work through all of those pieces and be like, okay, how do I actually want to be in this moment? And trying to put that in place and basically practice because it's quite hard when they're quite annoying.
They're really pushing the buttons.
And you're like, I just love this so much.
This is a fun phase.
Exactly. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's also like, I do really also agree with my job isn't to make him happy. My job is to build resilience in him. But my caveat to that, because I think that some people can take that too far in the old 90s, like, you know, you fall over and it's like, oh, you're all right, don't cry.
Get back up.
Exactly. And I'm like, that's not the same thing to me. And I think some people confuse that. And it's like, no, I'm always a safe place. And I always, like, one of my favorite things that I've recently read is just to say to your child, like, I believe you, you know, like whatever's happening, it's like, hey, I actually believe you. And now we're going to work through it together, because I think just like validating them in that way is just like so important. And it's like, hey, I'm not denying your experience, even though you're 4 years old. And so, I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but
no, it's so good. This is the good stuff. No, that's great.
For me, that's
and then
what it means.
when you're talking about like your gold standard as a secure attachment, how would you know? Like, what do you think is like for you looking at Louis? How do you know that he's got a secure attachment?
I mean, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know the true definition of it all. But to me,
your version of it.
To me, it is that he is comfortable on his own. He is comfortable going out, exploring, trying new things, trying tricky things and hard things, and looking at me, but not needing me to be right there with him. But then also for him to know and believe and trust that I will always be there when I said I would, if he needs me, you know, that is kind of a non-negotiable, and it's not something he ever needs to question, that is always just a fact. And I hope that builds his trust in people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like, I want you to trust that people are good.
Yeah, exactly. And I do let him do quite a lot. I've never, to my own surprise, to be honest, I'm really not a helicopter parent. And I
Yeah.
think I was a little bit helicopter parented. Hopefully my mum doesn't listen to this. And it was always, there was two girls. It was, my mum's a very cautious person. And so it was always like, oh, don't, you might hurt yourself. Be careful, be careful. And I kind of, my rule of thumb, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but is basically like, if it's not going to cause a head injury, it's kind of fine. Bones, they heal,
They heal. We'll
Yeah,
fix those.
exactly. I'm like, if it's not like irreversible damage, then I think I'll just kind of let you figure that out.
Yeah.
And I hope, and at the moment when he's 4, that looks like climbing trees. But I hope that as a teenager or as an adult, that looks like, if you miss a deadline, then you learn how to pay the consequences. Or if you don't do something, or if you try something that's a bit tricky and it's not successful, then we'll just kind of learn through that. And I'm probably not going to rescue you. But I will give you a cuddle if you ask.
Yeah. And I'll believe you
And
when you tell me you've done something wrong.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Do you think that you would have parented a daughter differently in that way? Like, do you think you would have been as but coming from a family of 2 girls yourself?
I hope so, but I am so glad I didn't have a daughter, because the idea of a daughter absolutely petrifies me. And I don't know what that says about my teenage years, but I am
Same.
like,
Exactly the same as me. Yeah. Yeah.
so I think being a girl is really hard. And I think that I would, not saying that being a boy isn't, but I just know, I guess I only lived my own experience. And the thought of having to watch a child that I love feel any of the feelings I felt as a teenage girl is enough to just be like, nah, I can't
I
do it.
know. I know.
So yeah, that's part of, like, we are definitely one and done family, no more children, absolutely not. And that is a little part of that, is that, because there is like a 50% chance that it's
Yeah.
And so I'm like, no, I'm good.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
How did you guys come around to the decision of being one and done? Like, was that always the plan? Was it after Louis? Like, how did that come
I
about?
think it wasn't the plan. Like, I think I had a sister, I'm one of 2, and so I kind of always thought like, well, hell, I'll have 2 kids.
Mm.
But I am a selfish person in that
I don't know if I'll call it selfish.
I like the things that I like. I like working, and I like exercising, and I like having time. I'm a person who needs space and time to herself. And I think I realized that I just wasn't gonna be enough of a person that I wanted to be and be able to give that to 2 children. I think also I like, just financially, it was like a decision that we were comfortable with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think parenting is hard. I found it hard.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard.
I found it hard, and I was kind of like, cool, I don't think I'll do that again. Much as obviously adore Louis, would, as cliche as it is, but like wouldn't swap him for the world. But yeah, I can't do it again.
And how do you feel about, like, because I know other friends who are one and done, they get like bombarded with messaging about like, but a sibling's the best gift you can give to a child, all of that. How do you deal with that messaging? Like,
I think, look, I do feel the mum guilt in not giving him a sibling, I think.
interesting.
Yeah, that is something that I feel, especially when he goes, why don't you have a baby in your tummy? And I'm like,
I don't want one.
yeah, exactly. I actually said to him the other day, I was like, do you know what? Babies are so annoying. You
Just
will
let him come around and hang out at our house. He'll be
And
like,
I was
nah,
like,
mum,
you
don't
would
do
like
that.
never be able to have your Lego out, and like mummy would be so busy. Like, oh, we just definitely do not want one. And he's like, yeah, babies are so annoying. Yeah, I think, look, I get that messaging from people who have only, like, older people who've only had one kid, which is wild. I'm like, that's
Weird.
interesting because you only had one child.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a long story. But I think, I don't know, as a person, I'm kind of like one of those people that will probably always just have her own opinions about most things. And I kind of try to not take advice from people whose lives I don't want.
And also like whose lives you're not living.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know, will it be like, do I know definitively that it was the right choice? No, I don't know. I know some pretty cool only children.
And also, I don't think we will ever know definitively if, like, I will never know definitively if having a second child was the right choice, but it's the choice
Exactly.
I made, you know?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
we could say that about any choice around parenting that you make.
Exactly. And so I think as a result, I'm going to be, I'm going to be as conscious as I can to
Mhm.
make sure that he has, multiple groups of friends so that if one group of friendship breaks down, he has, soccer friends or school friends or whatever
Yeah.
friends. And so that because he won't have, sibling friends, he has his little cousin who is currently an only child too. And
Mhm.
I have two very best friends with little boys within 3 and 9 months of him, and they are all only children too. So, well, actually, only children apart from stepbrothers who are a bit older. So, the only children in that age bracket.
In that age group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that helps because
Yeah.
they all that's all they know. So,
You created a village.
exactly. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Nice.
And hopefully I haven't created a monster. We'll see.
I'd find that pretty hard to believe, knowing you and Jessie. It would be a surprise if he ended up anything less than delightful, but jury's still out.
See
We'll
what
find
happens.
out. So I guess on that note, what is something about your parenting style that feels unique to you?
So I think honestly nothing, and that's the point.
Yeah.
Because I think parenting is this insane leveler of all people, of all societies and ages and things. And
Yeah.
I think you could be, celebrity, working mum, whatever. And I think it's just like the coolest thing that you can suddenly have something to talk to with another parent about, and you suddenly have this thing in common, and it doesn't matter literally who you are because the kids do not care and they will poo in their nappy exactly when you don't need them to.
I
And
do
so,
like the idea that you could sidle up to like Kim Kardashian and be like, how about that 4-month sleep regression, eh,
oh,
Kim? Like,
exactly. And it's like, yeah,
yeah.
maybe they don't know about it because they've got a nanny, at
They
the end
know
of
it
the day.
exists.
Exactly. And kids, so I think in a weird way, I think nothing I do is that unique or special, really.
Mm.
On the other side, I think maybe controversially, the unique thing about my parenting is that I don't put him first in everything. And obviously for me, that means it's not that I don't consider him, and I would obviously never do anything that was detrimental to him, but he is a member of our family. He's not the
Yeah.
monarch of the family,
Yes.
as much as he would like to believe it.
I think every child would like to be the monarch of their family, but I think that creates a monster.
Exactly. And so, I don't know, I think that there's this huge movement of, all of this gentle parenting and all of that, which I just like so agree with so much of it. And I think there sometimes on the extreme, there is like the message is misconstrued that the child then dictates everything. And I think that that's actually a terrible responsibility to put on a little child. And I don't think it helps them to know their place in the world and their place in
Or setting
society.
setting them up for adulthood, eh?
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's unique. Maybe it's a little bit less unique now. It's interesting. Yeah, I
Mm.
think I'm like a bit of a split personality of a parent where I'm kind of like co-sleeping and breastfeeding, but then also like advocate for daycare and full-time working. So it's kind of like somewhere in the middle is hopefully a good
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think it's just like it hammers home that thing of like, I think people can get stuck in this like, you need to prescribe to like one, you're either
Oh,
like a
yeah.
crunchy mum or a Montessori mum or a whatever. When it's
Yes.
really like, no one is one thing. So
Oh,
let's just like find the bits that work and pull that into our life.
absolutely. And like people are like, oh, like what school's he going to go to? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know him yet. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what he's going to be like. I don't know what he's going to need.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm finding out now that I've known him for 4 years, but I don't know by the time he gets to the next stage. I think I'm really trying to, rather than prescribe to a movement or whatever it is,
Yeah.
trying to listen to him and
Mm.
get to know him and figure out what he needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is super child led, like if you're going back round to that,
Yeah.
like,
Well, I guess so.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's like in its way,
Yeah.
it's really child led. And I really like the way that you're talking about like making sure that you've got bit like pieces for you as well, because then you're
Yes.
able to have that capacity to be child-led, like it all
Exactly,
cycles
and,
back
like,
round.
I'm so proud for him to know a mum that works.
Hmm.
And it's different from my experience of my own childhood, and that was great, but this is my experience, and this is who I am as a person, and this is what suits Jessie and I in terms of our personalities. Like, I guess a unique thing about us is probably that we probably switched traditional gender roles in how we
Mm.
divide labor in our house. And I mean, in saying that, he works full time and very, very hard as well.
Yeah.
But just in terms of the fact that, he is kind of, for all intents and purposes, the primary parent
Mhm.
because he does the pickups, the drop offs, the lunch boxes, and the dinner. I'm very fortunate.
Bless 'em. Love that.
Exactly. But then because of the nature of his work, I do the weekends by myself all of summer. So, it's like that, but that works for us and that's
Yeah.
okay. And I'm probably a little bit, I don't know. He's kind of firm too. So I don't know who's the good cop and the bad cop. I think we switch.
Everyone's just a cop.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We're
I
just the armed forces.
Yeah, I guess my question, because I come from a household at the moment where like I'm staying at home, Andrew's working, kids are
Yeah.
at home, well, Freddie's in daycare. Anyway, not going to get caught up in the weeds
Yeah.
of that, but
Yeah.
my question's around like the mental load, because obviously like I think that traditionally falls onto mum. Obviously when mum's staying at home, the mental load sort of sits with her. Like,
Yeah.
do you find that that has been split between you guys? Has Jessie got the main mental load of raising Louis? Have you got it? Like, where's that sitting for you guys with that
So
switch of gender roles?
yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I think at the beginning, I think hormones do crazy things to your body. And so when I really, really noticed when I was breastfeeding, my brain was just like, baby, 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 baby. And that
Mhm.
was 2 years. And so I basically just did everything. I was obsessed. I was reading books. I was listening to podcasts. I was like, because that's how my brain works and what I do.
Mhm.
And then I think I burnt myself out completely. And then I was like, you are not helping, you are not doing it. I have to do it, the
Yeah.
classic, like that's how I was feeling. And then I read something, can't remember where, and it was basically like, if you are going to ask somebody to share the load with you, you don't get to criticize them every time they try to help.
Yeah.
And it was basically like, kind of got you've kind of got to just say absolutely nothing the first like 30 times they give it a go because
Mm.
because it's also like I had to look at myself and be like, I've basically shut you out of these decisions and I've shut you out of this learning and I've shut you out of this process, and now I'm mad that you don't understand it all, and that is completely ridiculous.
Why don't
And
you know what to do?
why don't you know what to do about this thing that I've never told you about and that I've absolutely stopped you being a part of?
And
So,
I'd like you to instinctively pick up, please.
exactly. So, for me, what that looked like in reality was I remember really distinctly because Louis' daycare doesn't provide lunches. And so you have to pack
Mhm.
a lunchbox. And so I was like, you've got to pack the lunchbox. But then I would like inspect the lunchbox and it would be like not what I wanted to pack. And then he was like, well, like, it's basically like I was just trying to catch him out, which was totally
Mm,
unfair. So I had to physically remove myself and just
yeah.
not look in the lunchbox. And I had to believe that this man was the father of my child, loved him as much as I did, wants the best for him as much as I do, is trying as hard as I am, and like probably that flavor of yogurt is fine.
And like, I picked you to be the father of my child. So
Exactly.
why am I not trusting you to do that?
Exactly, exactly. And now Jessie is like, I came home the other day and they'd like made muffins. He's like protein pancakes. They're just
Oh,
all
love
out,
it.
and I'm just like, man, I could not do as much as you do. And
Yeah.
like, but it's because I think I gave him the space to do that. And so now, mental load wise, I mean, honestly, I think he does more than I do, to be
Right.
completely honest. Yeah. But I
But
think
you're working full time.
I
So
am working full time. Yeah,
there's
exactly.
the rub, right?
Exactly. And there's certain things, like gifts for birthdays. I like doing that. It's something I instinctively think about, But
Mm,
in terms of like making sure that there's beach stuff in the car because they always go on adventures, yeah, Jesse does that now. And he
nice.
knows all of that. And I remember a moment where Louis had an antibiotic and it was like day 4. And I was like, how much of this am I meant to give? Like, where is it? Like, what time is he having it? And I was like, whoa, this is so weird, but it's great.
That's great. And I
Yeah.
feel like, especially for a lot I've heard about when mums are the ones who return to work,
Mm.
is that the mental load can still fall on mum. So mum's at work and has the mental load. So she's at work full time. And on top of that, just like in the top of her brain, like dentist appointments,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
vaccinations.
yeah.
And so you can't actually be present at work. And so I think like amazing that you guys have managed to set it up in a way that you actually have handed that off enough.
Yes, absolutely. And like, honestly, I do have to give a shout out because Jesse is such an amazing dad. And
We love you, Jessie.
yeah, he does a really great job. And he does more than I do, hands down.
Great. Amazing. So
Yeah.
good. And exactly how it should be. Like, no one's saying that dads shouldn't be stay at home and mums should go to work. Like, there's no one way to
Exactly.
do it. But it's
Yes,
like, however it's working, it needs to be equal
exactly.
in
And
a
it
way
just
that
suits
works.
our personalities so much better.
I think more and more we're getting into a case where mum will be a breadwinner. And so I
Yes,
think more people are going to get faced with the decision of like, we might have to buck tradition here for finances sake. And
absolutely.
so I think we need more examples of like how parents have made that work, especially if like initially mum was the one who was at home, like doing that switch as well.
Yes, and it's completely the opposite of the way that I was brought up. And my mum
Mm.
never returned to paid work after she
Wow.
had Steph and I.
Yeah.
And I think that was really important to her. And it was something that she was really proud of. And it is something that I don't think she fully agrees with my choice, but that's okay. That's my choice.
Yeah. And works for you guys.
Exactly. So,
And
yeah.
you've got a happy, healthy little dude. So
Yes, we do.
how did you make that choice? Like when? Where was that like decision and what did those conversations look like for you guys?
Think it wasn't super conscious because of the nature of weddings. It meant that it's very seasonal and it's very weekend heavy, although
Yeah.
it's surprisingly busy full time. But I think I started going back to work part time and then I really enjoyed it. And I
Mm.
really think I realized I really thought and felt, I think, like I just said, because of the way that I was brought up, that I needed to be a stay at home mum. And I actually kind of
Mhm.
thought that that's what I would be. And then I think because of that, I left it a bit late to the point that I was totally burnt out of mum life. And going back to work, I was like, gosh, I've really missed this. And it just kind of naturally evolved from there.
Yeah.
And then, circumstances happened at work, which meant that I had to step up and do more days. And it all just kind of went from there. And it is like, it's a ridiculous balance a lot of the time because sometimes Jesse's away for 4 days at a time over a weekend and it's like complete madness. And we have
Yeah.
to call in like every friend and auntie and grandma and everything to like
Yeah.
pick them up and drop them off and all of that. But it's,
Make it work.
yeah, it's the way it worked for us. And yeah, it does work.
You guys have got quite an amazing village, is something I have noticed about you, that you have like a very core group of friends who all seem to have kids around the same age that you seem to spend a lot of time with, both with your kids and also like as friends as well.
Yeah,
Like you seem to do trips away by yourselves and then also with the kids. And like,
yeah,
how
yeah.
was that friends you already had? Did you build that village? Like, was that an intentional thing? Did you fall into it? What did that kind of look like for you guys?
Yeah, so those girls I've been friends with since I was probably like 20. So we did all of those ridiculous years together and apart and in different countries and all of that kind of thing. And then it
Mm.
just so happened that kind of unconsciously we all had kids, within. So Juno's the eldest, 9 months later was Louis, and then 3 months later was Fred. And then, and then also my sister, and then also my other friend Kelsey, and they've all had boys and they're all within.
That's
Yeah,
so crazy that you all had boys.
exactly. So that just kind of was like, it made sense. And that I think just kind of, I think you have friend cycles. And obviously, like when we were all young and partying and whatever, that was a great way to stay in touch. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden you're all mums. And then you're like, okay, well, that's a great way. And I think that's really helped to bond us back together again. And I think I just owe my early parenting life to those girls because I just couldn't have done it without them. And we did everything together. Like there was a stage at, when we were all home when it was just about every day. It was like, okay, what are we doing? Because then we can do all of the hard stuff
Yeah.
together.
There's something about parenting
Yeah.
in a group, that you're just like, I was saying this to Andrew today, like, I don't know why it feels easier. It's not like there's less children, but it feels easier.
But I think it's because parenting, it's like this crazy thing where you're just like, it's like the worst kind of, because you're bored and busy at the same time.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
like the worst, because you're not even like bored relaxing. You're bored, but also like fully
Doing
busy and
everything. Yeah.
unable to do anything. And so I think if you can be busy and stimulated with at least a friend to talk to, that takes away the boredom aspect of it. Because
And there's
I
only
think
so much Netflix you can watch, eh? There's like a point where you're just like, oh, I'm so bored of
absolutely.
TV.
And like, I hate playing pretend. It is so, I am so boring and I am not good at it.
I'm
And
not good at imaginative play, Louis.
I am just not. And he's like, please, mum. And I'm like, I'm just
You're
so
like, but
bad.
it's a toy monster truck. It's not even real.
Exactly. And I'm like, we do other things, but just,
Yeah.
pretend play is hard. And so I do think having other people around does just make it so much easier. And yeah, just proximity wise, they all live within a couple of streets from us.
The
So that just
dream.
makes it easy. Yeah. And all of the boys ended up going to daycare together. So we all
Oh,
have like a
cool.
standing kind of permission at daycare that like we're allowed to pick up each other's children. So yeah,
That
it
is
is.
actually the dream.
Yeah, we're very
And also like how parenting was meant to be, you know?
absolutely. And also, I mean, the caveat to that is that we didn't have any family in Auckland when Louis was young. My parents lived in Hong Kong and Jessie's parents live up north. So although it feels like
And Steph was still
Steph
overseas,
was
eh?
overseas,
Yeah.
Steph was in Hong Kong. So like, although it feels like we have a village now, it was like I felt incredibly isolated when Louis was a baby. Yeah, I
And in
really
between
didn't.
COVID lockdowns where everyone was
Absolutely.
nervous anyway.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, we didn't have any family at all. So for a long time, we didn't do anything without, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, I don't know how really people give really little kids to babysitters. Like just Louis, just that would not have flown with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, for ages we weren't able to do anything, and that was really
Yeah.
tricky. But yeah, my
Yeah.
mum's here now, so that's
so
nice. Yeah.
Well, you guys did a good job of like making that village happen, you know, even though it didn't necessarily happen
We did a good
intentionally.
job of making it appear on social media like we were fine.
Oh, I feel like even, you know, we are so lucky with the village that we have. And
Yeah.
like, man, people like our families show up for us in the best way. And even with my second, like I felt lonely and isolated. And I was like, I have the most privilege here, the
Oh,
biggest
yeah.
village, like,
But it's
and still,
and I think that's another thing of parenting that's probably like a truth that people don't know is that like people probably won't show up for you in the way that you hoped.
Yeah.
Some will, but some won't. And that can
Yeah.
feel really isolating and it really, really can alter your relationships, I think.
Yeah. And I feel like also the people in your life who get what you're going through often have their own kids because they are parents. And so
Exactly.
it's like they want to show up for you, but
Yes, but
actually physically can't.
exactly. So I think that that's quite confronting and can be quite lonely. But then, like you say, you make new connections with people. Yeah.
We'll move on to the next question, which is what has your biggest, like, what the was that moment been since you became a parent?
I was trying to think about this and I honestly don't really know the answer to that question. Like,
That I feel like that's indicative of what a cool kid Louis is, like a chill kid.
I mean, he pooed on me when he was really little, like projectile pooed. He actually projectile pooed every single time we went in the car until he was like 6 months old.
That capsule, I don't know
Yeah.
what it is about that
It's
thing.
like wild. So,
The
I mean,
perfect angle.
that was pretty like, yeah, that was pretty crazy. And then, I mean, I think what the in a different way is kind of like recently he's been saying some really crazy, profound things. And
That is
like,
amazing.
I was
Like a little
asleep the other
Gandhi.
yeah, well, no, I was asleep the other day and I'm literally like asleep and he wakes me up and he's like, I'm wearing this like gold chain. He's like, Mum. And I was like, yes. Can I have that gold chain when you die? And I was like, what time is it? It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. What are you talking about? And then I was
Why
like,
are you thinking about my death right now?
yeah. And then I was like, yeah, I mean, sure. And then he was like, because that's the way the world works. And I was like, I'm speechless. And so I think that was like a what the in a kind of like, wow, what is your brain and where does it come from and how did you get here and why are you talking about wills?
And do I need to update my will? Because now I'm thinking about it.
Yes. And so that was like kind of a bit of a moment like that, but probably maybe not in the way that you expected. But yeah, I
That is
mean, they're pretty.
such a good answer to it. I love it. I love when they just catch you completely off guard and you're like, what is happening right now?
I know. And they just say like the most wild things, and you're just like, man, it's like I can literally watch your brain live
Yes,
processing,
yes,
learning. It's like crazy.
yes.
So
And I
yeah.
just love the idea that he was like lying in bed being like, Mum's gonna die one day.
Oh yeah.
Can I have her jewelry?
Oh, yeah, he's very obsessed with dying and death and skeletons and all of that, which is
Interesting.
kind of funny because he has unfortunately experienced a lot of death for a 4-year-old. But we're trying to just kind of like talk about it. And now he's kind of more fascinated by the fact that like will I still love him when all my skin has come off my bones?
The logistics of the thing.
Like, at what stage do we stop loving? And I'm like, nah, I will still love you.
Is the skin still on or
Yeah,
off when the
or off.
loving stops?
You're a full skeleton. So yeah, anyway, he's a funny boy.
I guess, like, on that point,
Yes.
truly because I've had a conversation about it this week,
Yeah.
how did you go about talking about death to Louis as a little kid? How did you explain that to him?
Yeah, it was
If
really
you're happy to talk about
yeah,
it,
yeah,
that
yeah.
is.
I'm happy to talk about it. It was actually really tricky because I didn't really know what to say. And yeah, for anybody who's listening, my dad passed away, and then my grandfather passed away, and then our cat passed away, and then my uncle is very unwell. So there's just been a lot, and this is all in the last 2 years, which I just think for a 4-year-old is a lot to process.
It's a lot, yeah.
So I mean, I read a lot. I reached out to a good friend who is a psychologist and was like, what am I doing?
Help.
And I think the hardest thing for me, again, like back to this whole thing of working on yourself, it's like he wasn't even asking in sadness a lot of time. He was asking in curiosity and just trying to understand. And I remember hearing that, like, basically, if you don't talk to them, children will make up the story in their head, you know? And so I was like, no, I need to be the narrative. I need to be I need him to be able to come to me so that he's not making things up and assuming things that are happening. So the advice I got was basically just to talk to him very frankly, but without going into unnecessary detail, but also to talk, that you die. And when you die, you stop feeling. So you don't feel cold and you don't feel hungry and you can't hear people. And then, it's sad for other people around you, but you can't feel anything and it's not sore anymore. And just kind of just very like straightforwardly. And then we got this beautiful book called The Invisible String, which I would recommend to anybody who has a child who either struggles with separation anxiety, because I think it's great for that, but also things like death and being away from people. And so we kind of read that. But I also just had to make sure and kind of give myself the space to make sure that I was ready to have the conversation. And so, and that was kind of hard because sometimes you'll be doing this and you'll be in the middle of play and he'll be like, I really miss Gung Gung. And I'm like, damn, kid, so do I.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, exactly. And so I waited until, because there was a time when he was talking about it a lot, and I waited until I felt like I was ready. And then I kind of we had, a bedtime story. And then I kind of was just like, okay, what do you want to know? Like, ask me anything. Ask me anything about death, about Gung Gung, about how it all works, anything that you're scared of. Just ask me all of the questions because I don't want you to make them up. Like I didn't say but I just want you to feel like you can say them and we can process them and that it's not something that you're kind of ruminating in your own head. So now we're just mostly obsessed with bones and skeletons and he doesn't seem too scarred by it, but we'll see.
And he like understands what death is too, and as much as a 4-year-old can now, do you think?
I think he does, yes. He does think, like the other day he was doing something ridiculous and I was like, be careful. And he was like, it's fine because if I die, I'll go to heaven. And I was like, no.
Hang on.
Yes.
We're not going to
So
walk through life with this blasé attitude about
yeah,
death.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like, we may have gone too far. But yeah,
It
I
might be
mean,
fine, but we're not aiming for death.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think, yeah, as much as a 4-year-old, and he is like, he's quite insightful and he does bring my dad up quite a lot and said he misses him. And yeah, and I try as much as I can to not shut him down and say, hey, yeah, I miss him too. And I did say to somebody a while ago, oh, I try not to let him see me cry. And my friend was very insightful and was like, but why not? Because
Mm.
then he knows it's okay. And I was like, that is a revelation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
The
yeah.
child social worker in me is screaming at you to cry.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the thing I'm still working on, but that's my
Yeah.
thing, not his.
And it can be a hard thing. I think the generation we were raised by is very much like we don't need to show emotion, we don't need to fight, we don't like all those negative emotions were kind of like hidden away behind closed doors for
Absolutely.
us.
Yes,
And so I think
absolutely.
us restructuring that is like going to be a
Yes.
real active
Yes,
thing.
exactly, exactly. And I was like, that's like that feels like very vulnerable and like very
Mm.
confrontational for me. And I'm just like not ready to share that with my 4-year-old. But
Interesting,
it
eh?
is.
That like the things that you're like, "Ooh, that feels really hard." Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, we're working on it.
It's all right.
Yeah.
So you're still a new parent, you know?
Yeah,
You're only a
exactly.
4-year-old parent at this
Exactly.
stage. You've got time. And then to wrap up, the last question is that if you were listening to this podcast the day you became a parent, so the day that Louis was born, what would you want yourself to hear that day?
What would I want myself to hear? I mean, is everybody just going to say that it gets easier? Because
Yeah.
I think it does. I think 4 is like this magical age because they still think the sun shines out of your ass. But you can
Mm.
have a full conversation with them and they can have an opinion and you can ask them what they want to do on the weekend. And it starts to become this really fun thing where they are your friend.
Yeah.
And, you breastfeed and it's so hard and it's every 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden you've got a 4-year-old smashing a burger next to you. And you're like, whoa, when did that happen?
Where did that? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say, we kind of covered it, but like, yeah, find your people and do everything you can with them and do all of the boring, hard stuff with them because it makes it so much easier. And I just absolutely couldn't have done mine without my people. Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of it. I mean, one day you'll be sitting doing a podcast and your son and your husband will be on a boys' weekend at the Mount and you'll have the whole weekend and you'll be getting up in the morning to run at 7 a.m. with your girlfriends.
I
And
can't believe you're getting up to run at 7 a.m. when you've got
I
the
know,
weekend to yourself, but you fill that cup, girl. You fill that cup.
but it's what makes me happy and is what
Exactly.
I felt completely just so impossible at one stage. And I was kind of like, I remember having him as a newborn and being like, oh, well, I'll just never cook a meal again. I
Yeah,
guess I will
I'll
never
never
get
feel good again.
breast ever
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you will. You'll do all of
Yeah.
those things and it will be all right.
Oh,
But yeah.
yeah, that's so nice. Go back and give that fresh Jessie a hug, that early postpartum Jessie. It will be okay.
I know. I would love to.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Why Do You Parent Like That? Why Do You Parent Like That is a podcast created and hosted by me, Abby Harrison. A big shout out to my nephew Thomas and my niece Frances for lending their voices to my jingle, and to everyone who is helping me with their expertise on podcasting while I figured this out. Any resources mentioned in today's pod will be linked in the show notes alongside our sponsors. Please follow Why Do You Parent Like That on your podcast platform of choice, and follow us on our TikTok and Instagram at Why Do You Parent Like That podcast for more behind the scenes and reveals of upcoming guests. If you have a story you think would be great to share, please send me an email at whydoyouparentlikeThatpodcast@gmail.com. Love you. Say it back.